Level 1. The surface. You are 31 years old. You just crossed $100,000 saved, the first 6 figures of your life. And here is the first strange thing about it, the thing nobody warns you about. Nothing looks any different. It's an ordinary Wednesday, and you are standing in the same apartment you lived in last week, wearing the same clothes. About to drive the same car to the same job. You crossed a line that most people never cross in their entire lives. A line you spent years grinding toward, and when you look around for the evidence of it, for the visible proof that your life has changed, there is none. The rooms look the same. The mirror looks the same. If a stranger walked through your life today, they would see exactly what they would have seen a year ago. A regular person living a regular life, with no sign at all that anything remarkable just happened. And this is the first truth about 6 figures that the movies never show you. It does not announce itself. It does not glitter. From the outside, $100,000 saved looks like absolutely nothing. This is the first thing nobody tells you about reaching $100,000. The change is invisible, and it is invisible on purpose. Because the only way most people ever reach this number is by not spending it, by refusing to convert it into the visible things. The nicer car, the bigger apartment, the upgraded life that would announce to the world that they had money. The people who reach 6 figures and immediately spend it back into visibility never actually keep it. The ones who keep it are the ones who can sit on $100,000 and still look, to everyone around them, like they have nothing. Your life does not look different because the entire achievement lives in the fact that you did not let it. What changed is real and enormous, and it is happening entirely beneath a surface that looks exactly like it did before. You pour your coffee in your ordinary kitchen and head out the door. No one you pass today will have any idea. That is not a failure of the milestone. That is the milestone, working exactly as it should. The verb at level 1 is look. It looks, from the outside, like nothing at all. Looking at this level means discovering that the most important financial milestone of your life so far is completely invisible, and that its invisibility is not a disappointment, but the entire point. Because wealth kept is wealth you did not turn into something other people could see. Level 2. The calm. You are the same person in the same life, but something inside you has changed that no one can see. And it might be the most valuable part of the whole thing, which is that for the first time in your adult life, you can breathe. Think back to who you were before this. One flat tire from a crisis. One surprise bill from the edge. One bad month from real trouble. That low, constant hum of financial anxiety that follows most people through their entire lives, the background dread of being one emergency away from disaster, was always there, underneath everything, quietly draining you. And now, at $100,000, for the first time, it is gone. Or at least quiet. You have a floor under your feet. If you lost your job tomorrow, you would be fine for a long time. If the car died, if the roof leaked, if life did what life does, you could simply handle it, write the check, move on. Without the spiral of panic that used to come with every unexpected expense. This is not the freedom of the rich. It is something more fundamental and, in its way, more precious. It is the end of a specific kind of fear. And the strangest part is realizing how much of your life that fear was quietly running. You did not notice it while it was there. The way you do not notice a sound until it stops. But now that it is gone, you can feel the space it used to take up. The risks you never took because you could not afford to fail were all shaped by a fear you had simply accepted as the background condition of being alive. And now that it is quiet, you understand it was never the background at all. It was running you the whole time. This is the second thing nobody tells you about reaching $100,000. The first and biggest thing money buys is not luxury. It is the silence of a particular anxiety, and that silence changes you more than any purchase ever could. When you are no longer bracing every single day for the financial blow that could knock you over, your mind is freed up for other things, for better decisions, for longer thinking, for a calm that spreads into parts of your life that have nothing to do with money. You sleep better. You carry yourself differently. You stop making desperate short-term choices out of fear, because you are no longer afraid in the way you used to be. The $100,000 did not make you rich. It made you safe, and safe, it turns out, is a feeling most people chase their whole lives and never quite catch. You notice it in small moments, the bill that arrives and does not make your stomach drop. The unexpected expense that is now just a number, not a threat. It is quiet. It is invisible. It has changed everything. The verb at level 2 is breathe. You breathe, for the first time, free of the fear that shadowed every year before this one. Breathing at this level means discovering that the first thing wealth buys is not a better life, but the end of a specific dread, the constant low anxiety of being one emergency from ruin, and that its absence is worth more than almost anything you could have bought instead. Level 3. The engine. You are living your ordinary life, and somewhere in the background, for the first time, your money has started to work a real shift, earning at a scale you can finally feel. Here is what $100,000 does that $10,000 never could. At the returns the market has historically produced over the long run. $100,000 earns somewhere in the range of $8,000 to $10,000 a year on its own, without you lifting a finger. Stop and compare that to your labor. There are people working full-time, exhausting jobs who do not clear $10,000 in a year after their costs, and your money, sitting quietly in an account. Now earn something close to that while you sleep. For the first time, the growth is not a rounding error you have to squint at. It is a real, meaningful amount. A second income beginning to stir, small still, but finally large enough to matter, and every year from here it grows, because the returns start earning returns of their own. This is the third thing nobody tells you about reaching $100,000. This is the number where compounding stops being a theory and becomes an engine you can actually feel running. One of the most legendary investors who ever lived said famously that the first 100,000 is the hardest, the one you have to grind and claw and sacrifice for. And that once you have it, you can ease off the effort, just a little, because the money finally starts pulling real weight of its own. He was right. And the reason he was right is simple. Below this number, you are the entire engine. Every dollar comes from your effort. At this number, a second engine switches on, quiet and tireless. And from here forward, you are no longer building your wealth alone. Your money has joined you, and it does not get tired, and it does not stop. And something changes in how you think once you have seen this. You stop measuring money only in what it can buy, and start measuring it in what it can earn. Because every dollar you save is no longer just a dollar set aside. It is a tiny worker hired for life, sent out to bring back more. $100 is no longer $100. It is a few dollars a year, forever, and growing. Once you start seeing money this way, spending feels different, saving feels different. And the whole game quietly reveals its real rules to you. The ones the wealthy always knew and you are only now learning to see. You look at a year of growth and realize it rivals what some people earn in months of labor, and it came from nothing but patience. The engine is running now. You can hear it, faintly, under everything. The verb at level 3 is compound. It compounds, at last, at a scale you can feel. Compounding at this level means crossing the point where your money begins to earn like a second income, where the first 100,000 flips from the hardest money you will ever save into the launch of an engine that builds the rest for you. Level 4. The spine. You look the same, you live the same, but you carry yourself through the world differently now, because for the first time you have something most people never get, which is the ability to walk away. There is a kind of quiet power that comes from having $100,000 behind you, and it shows up in the moments that matter. The job that turned toxic, the boss who crossed the line, the situation you would once have had to endure because you could not afford to leave. Now you can leave. You have months and months of runway, the room to quit, to say no, to refuse the thing you would have swallowed before, because your survival no longer depends on anyone's goodwill but your own. This is the beginning of what people mean when they talk about walkaway money, the savings that turn you from someone who has to take it into someone who has a choice. And a person with a choice stands differently, negotiates differently, is treated differently, because desperation has a smell, and you have quietly lost it. This is the fourth thing nobody tells you about reaching $100,000. The money buys you a spine, or rather, it lets you finally use the one you always had. When you are broke, every no is expensive, every stand you take against a bad deal, or a bad boss, or a bad situation risks a disaster you cannot absorb. And so you learn to bend, to accept, to stay quiet. At 6 figures, that changes. You can afford to be honest. You can afford to walk. You can afford, for the first time, to make decisions from a place of strength rather than fear, and people can feel it, in the room, in the negotiation, in the way you hold your ground. Because the person who can walk away always holds more power than the person who cannot, and you, quietly, have just become the person who can. You feel it most clearly on the bad days. The meeting that would once have filled you with dread because you needed the paycheck too badly to ever push back. Now you sit in that same meeting and feel something new underneath the frustration. A floor, the knowledge that you are here by choice and not by chains, that you could stand up and walk out and be perfectly fine while you figured out what came next. It does not make the bad day good. It makes the bad day survivable. And a survivable bad day is a completely different experience from one that could quietly ruin you. You do not have to use it loudly. You do not have to threaten or announce it. You simply know, in the back of your mind, that you have options now. And that knowledge changes how you move through every room you enter. The verb at level 4 is stand. You stand differently because you can finally afford to walk away. Standing at this level means gaining the quiet leverage of options, the power to say no, to leave, to refuse, and learning that the person who can walk away is treated better than the person who cannot, in every negotiation life will ever put in front of them. Level 5. The identity. You are the same on the outside, but you are not the same person who started this, because somewhere in the years of grinding toward this number, you became someone new, and that someone is worth more than the money. The 100,000 did not appear. You built it, dollar by dollar, choice by choice, over years. And the building of it required you to become a specific kind of person, someone who delays, who plans, who resists the easy purchase, who keeps going through the boring stretch when the balance climbs slowly. That person did not exist when you started. You forged them, slowly, through 1,000 small acts of discipline. And now that person is who you are, automatically, without effort. Saving is no longer something you force yourself to do. It is simply what you do, the way you operate, baked into you by years of practice. And this is the part almost no one understands about the first 100,000. The number in the account is not the real prize. The person you had to become to get it, that is the prize, because that person will keep building for the rest of your life. This is the fifth thing nobody tells you about reaching $100,000. The money is not the asset. You are. The habits, the discipline, the identity you built on the way to 6 figures are worth more than the 6 figures themselves. Because if you lost every dollar tomorrow, the person you became would simply build it back. Faster this time, because they already know how. This is why lottery winners so often go broke and self-made savers rarely do. Because the winner has the money without the person. And you have the person, and the person is the thing that lasts. You did not just save $100,000. You became someone who saves. And that someone is an engine that will run for the rest of your life. And this is why you cannot simply hand this to someone else, as much as you might want to. You could give a friend the exact steps, the same plan that got you here, and most of them still would not do it, because the plan was never the hard part. Becoming the person who follows the plan through years of boredom and temptation, that was the hard part, and it cannot be transferred, only lived. You did not find a secret. You became one, slowly, through the road you actually walked, which is why no windfall and no shortcut can ever really substitute for having walked it. You realize that even in the worst case, even if it all vanished, you would be fine, because the real wealth is not in the account. It is in who you had to become to fill it, and no one can take that. The verb at level 5 is become. You become the kind of person who builds wealth, and that person outlasts any balance. Becoming at this level means understanding that the true product of the first 100,000 was never the money but the identity you forged to earn it, an identity that is now permanent, automatic, and worth more than the sum that revealed it. Level 6. The distance. You look identical to the people around you, the same job, the same neighborhood, the same paycheck, but underneath the surface a gap has opened between you and them, and it grows a little wider every year. Here is something strange you start to notice. You and your peers earn roughly the same, live roughly the same, look roughly the same from the outside. But you have $100,000, and many of them have nothing, or worse, and the difference was never income. It was choices, made quietly, day after day, that no one saw. While they upgraded, you saved. While they financed the nicer car, you drove the old one. And now, though nothing looks different on the surface, you are on a completely different trajectory than the people who appear to be living the exact same life. The distance is invisible today, In 10 years, it will be enormous. Because your paths quietly diverged the moment you started keeping what they spent, and diverging paths, given enough time, end up worlds apart. And there is a constant, gentle pressure to close the gap, to spend your way back into looking like everyone else. The invitations, the upgrades, the thousand small moments where blending in would cost just a little money and would feel so easy and so normal. Everyone around you is doing it, and doing it looks like living, while your quiet saving can start to feel like missing out. Holding the line means being willing, again and again, to look a little more boring, a little poorer than people who are actually doing far worse than you. And that willingness to look poorer than you are is one of the quietest and most important skills you will ever build. This is the sixth thing nobody tells you about reaching $100,000. You begin to live a kind of double life, indistinguishable on the outside from people headed nowhere near where you are headed, and there is a strange loneliness in it. You cannot really talk about it. Announcing that you have saved six figures sounds like bragging. And most people do not want to hear that the difference between you and them was not luck or income, but the boring choices they scrolled past making. So you keep it quiet. And you carry the knowledge alone that you have stepped onto a different path while looking like you are still on the same one. It is isolating, in a small way, to be building something invisible that the people around you are not. To know that the sameness on the surface hides a divergence underneath that time will only widen. You sit at the same table as always, with the same people as always, and you love them, and you say nothing. Because you know something now that cannot be shared without sounding like a boast, that you are quietly going somewhere they are not. The verb at level 6 is diverge. You diverge, invisibly, from the people who look exactly like you. Diverging at this level means discovering that the gap wealth opens is not income, but choices. That it stays hidden for years, and then grows vast, and that carrying a secret trajectory among people on a different one is quietly, unexpectedly lonely. Level 7. The launch pad. You are standing at $100,000, and it feels, in the moment, like a summit you spent years climbing toward. And here is the final truth that changes how you see all of it. It is not the summit. It is base camp. Everything so far, the grind, the discipline, the years of saying no, was the hardest part, and it is behind you now. From here, the climb gets easier, not harder, which is the opposite of what you expected. The next 100,000 will come faster than the first, because now the money is helping, the engine is running, the compounding is real. The jump from 100,000 to 1,000,000 is a far longer distance than 0 to 100,000, and yet for most people who reach it, it takes less struggle. Because the hardest work was never the dollars, it was becoming the person and starting the engine, and both of those are done. You did the impossible part already. What remains is mostly patience, letting the machine you built run, while you keep being the person you became. And here, at the end, is the truth underneath everything. The first 100,000 was never really about the 100,000. And you can feel the acceleration already, if you know to look for it. The second 100,000, the one that used to seem as far away as the moon, is now visibly closer than the first one ever was, because the engine is contributing alongside you now, shortening every milestone still ahead. Then 250,000, then half, each one arriving faster than your effort alone could ever explain, because compounding is quietly taking over more and more of the work. You spent years pushing a boulder up a hill, and you have just reached the crest, where the same boulder, with the same push, begins to roll on its own. This is the seventh thing nobody tells you about reaching $100,000, and it reframes the entire journey. The first 6 figures were tuition. You were not just saving money, you were paying, in discipline and patience and delayed pleasure, to become a person who builds wealth and to start an engine that compounds. And the $100,000 is simply the receipt, the proof that the transformation is complete. That is why it looks like nothing from the outside and feels like everything from the inside, because the real change was never in your accounts. It was in you, and in the quiet machine now running beneath your ordinary life. You crossed the hardest line in personal finance. Not the line to being rich, that one comes later and easier. The line to becoming someone who almost certainly will be, if they simply keep going, exactly as they already are. The verb at level 7 is launch. You launch from a base camp that only looked like a summit. Launching at this level means understanding that the first 100,000 was the hardest and most important money you will ever save. The tuition you paid to become someone who builds wealth, and that from here the climb accelerates, carrying you toward a future that is now, quietly, almost inevitable. So let's pull this together. At level 1, it looks like nothing, because wealth kept is wealth you refuse to turn into something others could see. At level 2, you breathe, freed for the first time from the constant low fear of being one emergency from ruin. At level 3, it compounds, your money finally earning like a second income while you sleep. At level 4, you stand differently, carrying the quiet leverage of being able to walk away. At level 5, you become the kind of person who builds wealth, an identity worth more than the balance that proved it. At level 6, you diverge, invisibly, from the people who look exactly like you but are headed somewhere else. At level 7, you launch, from a base camp you mistook for a summit, into a climb that finally gets easier. Here is the thing nobody on YouTube will tell you about your first $100,000. It is the most important and least visible milestone in all of personal finance. It does not change how your life looks. You do not get rich, you do not upgrade. From the outside, you are the same person in the same life. And that invisibility fools almost everyone into thinking the milestone does not matter. But underneath the unchanged surface, everything has changed. The anxiety that shadowed your whole life goes quiet. The money starts working like a second income. You gain a spine, options, the power to walk away. And most of all, you become a different kind of person, one who has proven, to the only judge who matters, that they can build wealth, and that person does not stop. And here is the real secret, the one that reframes the whole grind. The first 100,000 was never about the 100,000. It was tuition. You paid it in years of discipline and patience and quiet sacrifice. And what you bought was not a number in an account. It was a transformation into someone who builds wealth automatically, running an engine that compounds on its own. The money is just the receipt. That is why the hardest 100,000 you will ever save is the first one, and why everything gets easier after it. Because you only have to become this person once, and then you simply are for the rest of your life. So if you are grinding toward it right now, somewhere below 6 figures, watching the balance climb slowly and feeling like it is taking forever and showing you nothing, understand what is actually happening. You are not just saving money. You are becoming someone. And the boring discipline that feels like it is only building a balance is really building a person, the most valuable asset you will ever own. Do not quit in the slow part. The slow part is where the person gets made. And if you have already crossed it, wondering why you do not feel rich, understand that you are not supposed to feel rich. You are supposed to feel exactly what you feel, calm and capable and quietly, invisibly, unstoppably on your way, standing at the base camp of a mountain that only gets easier from here. It's an ordinary Wednesday, and somewhere a 31-year-old just crossed $100,000 saved and looked around for the evidence of it, and found none. The same apartment, the same car, the same life, no sign at all that anything remarkable just happened. They do not yet fully understand what they have done. They think, maybe, that the milestone was a little disappointing. Because it looks like nothing, because no one can see it, because their life did not transform overnight the way the movies promised. But underneath that unchanged surface, the anxiety has gone quiet. The engine has switched on, the spine has hardened, and a person has been forged who will build wealth for the rest of their life without having to think about it. It looks like nothing. It is everything. There are 7 things that change at your first 100,000, and not one of them can be seen from the outside. The calm, the engine, the spine, the identity, the quiet distance from everyone still spending, and the launch pad hiding inside what looked like a summit. The life looks identical. The person living it will never be the same. If this video changed how you think about money and what it really buys, hit subscribe. We have more videos like this on the channel, each one pulling apart a piece of how wealth is actually built, underneath the story we are usually sold. See you in the next one.